I'm John Weber for AM Best TV, and we're in Wilmington, Delaware today for the Delaware Captive Insurance Association's annual conference. I'm speaking with Stewart Feldman. Stewart is CEO of Capstone Associate Services. Stewart, so glad you could join us today.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for having me.
And Stewart, what are some of the issues that captives are facing these days?
Well, there are several things that the captive industry is facing. I think one of them is the interest by the Internal Revenue Service in many of the captive issues. They've, after a period of hiatus for many years, the Internal Revenue Service has gotten active in looking at and examining the captive industry. Perhaps there's some people in the industry that aren't quite as, let's put it this way, thorough or professional or careful with what's being done, and are selling captives as a quote-unquote financial product without doing the necessary work. So I think the Internal Revenue Service has found some very fruitful grounds in those areas for examination and for rectification. I think that's one of the areas that we're seeing as a hot topic in the industry.
How about cell captives? Are you finding some unique issues as far as they're concerned?
For sure. Cells are in some ways like a hybrid product out there. In many ways it's a poor man's captive. It's a little like a used needle. It may be good, it may be bad, but you're depending upon third parties to ensure the integrity of the cell relative to the other cells that are involved. I think it's a dangerous area to get involved with. We find that usually very, very small clients with nominal premiums that are unsophisticated tend to get involved in cells. Any client that usually has their outside CPA or CFO or outside counsel involved would not touch a cell, not because theoretically it's bad, but because practically it presents many difficulties, and the savings that are involved in the cell are probably the price of a steak dinner.
Stewart, what are the tax litigation concerns of captives?
Well, the IRS is I think, feeling its way. They've brought several cases, recognizing the Internal Revenue Service has limited resources. So they're trying to figure out who are the good players in the industry, who are not the good players in the industry, and are doing that really with in a very gross way. That is not with a scalpel, but with a sledgehammer. And they've initiated several cases around the country. They have a couple of teams that are generally out of Chicago, the Chicago field office, and they're examining the captives to try to figure out what the support is for the captive, whether it was done right, whether it was done in compliance with federal law, and quite frankly, whether the insurance makes sense relative to the business risks.
And Stewart, what do you see as the future of captives?
Well, I mean, captives have been around for, some people say since the 40s, some people say since the 19-teens. Certainly they date back in the Internal Revenue Code back to the 19-teens. I'd say captives really date back several hundred years. Captives as risk-bearing entities have been around for, however you measure it, decades or centuries. They're not going anywhere. There's a recognition that the conventional markets only can handle certain general risks. Half the premiums in the P&C world are automobile coverages. Certainly when you get into the more specific, the more unique risks of businesses, there really aren't good policies out there, or the minimum cost of putting that policy in place is hundreds of thousands of dollars because someone's got to draft the policy, go over to London, to Lloyd's, or go to General Re, or go to some of the other risk-bearing entities such as Munich, and negotiate a specific policy. So because of that, you tend to have captives. They've been around for many, many years. They will be around for many, many more years, and they're a necessary adjunct to a company's alternative risk planning.
Stewart Feldman, so glad you could join us today.
Thank you for having me, John. Be well.
And for AM Best TV, I'm John Weber.